What's going on, peeps? So here it is. Just thinking about some stuff with David and Jonathan, um, and what came to my mind was knits and knots. Knits and knots. In the scripture, it was talking about how David and Jonathan, when they met each other, it said that their souls were immediately knit together. Um, and that says a lot, really. And I was thinking about, the last few weeks or whatever, I've been thinking about spiritual partnerships, spiritual friendships, just the concept that our friendships are spiritual. Um, and just kind of want to share this with you all in a moment. Maybe I'll even say in a moment in my life where things are just really difficult, things are really hard, and just seeing people's relationships and the way they do their relationships is very grieving to me. And I recognize how things have become. A lot of our relationships, we wear them on our sleeve. We wear them maybe even as just like you would put on clothes, so you can just easily take them off or whatever. It's not the fabric of our heart like we say that it is, because and sometimes we feel like that it's the fabric of our heart because we still have feelings about it. But at the end of the day, the reality is when something is attached to your heart, when it's gone, it's almost like death. It's like a death, and actually has the ability in some degrees to seem like it's going to take you out. And we rebut that. We fight that all the time because we feel like, well, the only thing that should have your heart like that is God. And I have reason to say I get what people are saying with that. I understand that whole concept, but I do also recall Adam saying that Eve was bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh. So their separation, to a certain degree, would cause a certain level of death for him. And we see it happening. We just don't want to relate it as that. We just don't want to call it as that. And again, not just talking about in the husband and wife relationship, or not just talking about in those romantic type of relationships, but in our relationships, period. We have to ask ourselves the question: are we knitted or are we knotted, or whatever? And that can be looked at in two ways. One, we can look at it from this standpoint: a knot, something that's tied in a knot. A knot can easily be undone, or may take a little bit of work, but it can actually be undone. And it's still two completely separate entities. But when you look at something being knitted together, things are knitted together to make one item. Things are knitted together, like somebody knitting a blanket. The yarn by itself is not what make the blanket is the yarns put together, being knit together to formulate whatever that particular fabric is, or whatever it is that we're trying to make. So we have to ask ourselves that question even as it relates to relationships. Is my relationship a knot or is my relationship a knit? And a lot of times you don't find out what it really is until till the go down goes down. You know what I'm saying? So it's just real interesting a lot of times how we find ourselves in these situations and in places like that. And both of these, a knit and a knot, both of them can cause you a lot of devastation. Both of these kind of relationships can be painful if they're undone. But there's something said about the relationships that are knittings. But another way to look at the knot concept is sometimes we're knotted within ourselves, where our soul is just not. It's not that our soul is connected to somebody else, but it's connected to another person. And I just did a Facebook post a little while ago, and I was just talking about you really learn and you really see what the relationship is when you decide if you're only committed to a relationship. Or how can I put it? I put it this way: if you're committed, when you ask yourself the question, if you're committed to the person, or are you committed to what that person does for you? And I'm finding out in a lot of our relationships, which is the way, I guess this is the way it works with fallen man, but a lot of times we're committed to what a person does for us instead of actually being committed to that person. And that's not saying that we should be in relationships and you're not getting anything from it. But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves that deep and that hard question: am I really committed to this person, or am I committed to what this person does for me? And the answer to that actually really seals the deal. It seals the deal as to what that relationship really is. It seals the deal sometimes as to how long that relationship is going to last. It seals the deal as to what happens in the face of fire when you're not feeling each other no more. If you're committed to that person, you're going to stick around and even help that person to come to a place of growth and development. But if you're committed to what they do for you, it's easy to just pack your bags and go. And even in the times when it's not so easy, you still, at the end result was you packed your bags and you went. But just thinking about all of this and processing all of this is just really something I want us to think about in our lives. Sometimes you're not it with yourself. It's all about you. It's all about what you want. It's all about you tied up in you. It's self-absorption, you know. So that's where that whole thing comes in. I'm committed to this person because of what they do for me, how they make my life better, and how they make my life happier. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have that, because we should. You know, that should be. It's like a circle. I laugh as I say it's like a circle, you know, and it goes round and round. So at the end of the day, you should be receiving some things from your relationship, but at the end of the day, it really needs to be about whether or not the longevity of that relationship, or the purity and the solidification of it, is going to be whether you're committed to that person, or whether you're committed to what that person does for you. So just ask yourself this question in your relationships: are you knitted, where the two of you have joined together? And I'm not talking about, again, I'm not talking about necessarily just romantic relationships, but even friendships. Are we knitted together to create a purpose much bigger than ourselves? A purpose which becomes spiritual partnership. And I'm not even talking about a project per se, but just the growth and development of living in the way that God called us to live, in unity and different things like that. Or are you in a knotted relationship where you're either just tied to yourself and it's really all about what you want, what you need, what you know, or if it's a thing where you're just tied to another person and you've just been around them so long, you just kind of like your strings are tied together. But at the end of the day, that knot can come undone. These questions we have to ask ourselves. These questions we have to be honest about. And these questions also will guide the direction of our life, and how seriously and how well we take the relationships that we find ourselves in. You know, so I ask that question: are you knitted, or are you knotted?